All right, let's talk about a danger that's probably hiding in plain sight, in lunchboxes, at birthday parties, on the sidelines of a soccer game. We're talking about sugary drinks. First, to really wrap our heads around the scale of this, get this. The average kid in the US drinks over 30 gallons of sugary drinks every single year. Just try to picture that for a second. 30 of those big gallon jugs of milk all lined up. That's how much liquid sugar a lot of kids are taking in, and honestly, the consequences are staggering. So, what are we actually talking about here? Well, the official term is sugar-sweetened beverages, or SSBs for short. And this is not just soda. It's a huge umbrella category. We're talking sports drinks, those brightly colored fruit aids, energy drinks, even a lot of sweetened teas. And here's the kicker. For most kids, these drinks are the #1 biggest source of added sugar in their entire diet. Look, we all know the basics, right? Sugar is bad for your teeth, it can make you gain weight, but that's just scratching the surface. The real physical price that kids are paying for this goes way, way deeper. Let's dig into what the science says this is actually doing to a developing body. And this quote, it just stops you in your tracks. It's from Dr. Sheila Maggi. She's a pediatric endocrinologist, so her entire job is dealing with hormones and metabolic diseases in kids. When she says she's treating 10-year-olds for diseases that we used to only see in middle-aged adults, you really have to pay attention. This isn't some problem for the future. It's happening in doctors' offices right now. And these are the exact diseases she's talking about. Type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, fatty liver disease in a kid, high cholesterol. I mean, these are serious, chronic conditions. Each one of these can put a burden on a child's health that they could carry for the rest of their lives. It's a direct result of the food environment we've created. So why? Why are these liquid calories so uniquely damaging? Well, it comes down to a word you might not hear a lot: satiety. It just means the feeling of being full. When a kid drinks a 150-calorie soda, their body and brain don't really register those calories. It doesn't send the, hey, I'm full signal, like 150 calories of, say, chicken or broccoli would. So they don't eat less later to make up for it. It's basically a backdoor for calories to pile up. And the long-term stakes for that calorie surplus are just incredibly high. This one statistic says it all. A child with obesity, which is tightly linked to drinking a lot of these beverages, is 4 times more likely to get a type 2 diabetes diagnosis by the time they are just 25 years old. 25! That's setting a person up for a lifetime of health issues before they've barely even started their adult life. But here's the thing. The damage isn't just physical. A whole bunch of new evidence is showing that this constant flood of liquid sugar is also rewiring the developing brain. It's affecting how kids learn, how they remember things, and how they focus. So let's get practical here. How does all this actually translate to the classroom or doing homework at the kitchen table? What is the real cognitive cost? These are the questions scientists are racing to answer. You know, for a long time, the science here was kind of murky. If you look back to the 90s, most major studies basically concluded, we don't see a clear link between sugar and a kid's brain function. But our scientific tools have gotten so much better, and a very different picture is starting to emerge. The recent evidence is way more concerning. It shows that high sugar intake can actually harm the hippocampus. That's the learning and memory center of the brain. It can promote inflammation. And some studies are now finding direct links between sugary drink intake in early childhood and lower verbal scores later on. And here's the mechanics of how it works in the brain. Sugar hits the brain's reward center, and boom, you get a release of dopamine, that feel-good chemical. Now, in a kid's brain, where impulse control is still, a work in progress, that dopamine rush is incredibly powerful. It can literally hardwire a preference for intense, extreme sweetness, which makes healthier foods like an apple or a carrot seem boring and bland by comparison. And when you combine that powerful reward with the fact that these drinks don't make kids feel full, well, you've created the perfect storm for overconsumption. Now, it's really easy to just point fingers and say kids should make better choices, but it is not that simple, not even close. To really understand this problem, we have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the societal and economic forces that are really shaping what our kids drink. Take a look at this chart from the CDC. It's incredibly revealing. You can see a very clear pattern. The lower a caregiver's level of education, the more likely it is that their young kids are drinking sugary drinks regularly. And let's be really clear, this isn't about blaming parents. This is a sign of deep socioeconomic issues, things like access to information, access to healthier options, and just the resources to fight against all the other pressures. And a huge part of that pressure is marketing.
Despite all these public promises to cut back, the beverage industry has actually increased its marketing to young people. And the research shows that this marketing is disproportionately targeted. African American teens, for example, see the most ads for sodas, sports drinks, and energy drinks. It's a deliberate strategy that takes advantage of how a young brain works.
So, after we looked at the physical damage, the cognitive effects, and the societal pressures, what's the ultimate takeaway? It's that we have to fundamentally rethink our entire relationship with these drinks.
First, we have to stop thinking of these drinks as just a harmless treat. They are so much more than empty calories.
The evidence is crystal clear. They pose an active risk to a developing body. They are opening the door to chronic diseases that should never, ever happen to a child.
And on top of that, they represent an active risk to a developing brain, potentially impacting a child's ability to learn and to thrive for the rest of their lives.
Which really just leaves us with one final and kind of challenging question. When pediatricians are treating children for diseases that used to belong only to adults, maybe it's not the kids who are the problem. Maybe it's a sign that we as a society are the ones who need to grow up.